You know the feeling, not as an abstraction, as a physical event. The chest that contracts without warning. The specific weight that settles somewhere between your sternum and your throat. The thing that moves through your body when someone you trusted walks away, when you are left out of something, when you realize a person you loved no longer needs you. You have probably been told at some point that this is not real pain, that it is emotional, that it is in your head, that the word hurt is a metaphor when applied to things like rejection and loneliness and the end of a relationship. The neuroscience says otherwise. What you feel when someone leaves is not like pain. It is pain, processed in the same circuits by the same brain regions through the same neural machinery as a burn or a broken bone. We have divided human experience into two categories for a very long time. Physical pain. Real, located in the body, measurable, treatable with medicine. Emotional pain. Real in its own way, but different, softer somehow, more interpretable, more a matter of perspective than of physiology. When the body hurts, it hurts. When the heart hurts, that is something else. This division feels intuitive. It matches the way we talk about the two kinds of pain, the way we treat them, the way we tell people to recover from them. Get over a broken arm. Follow the clinical protocol. Get over a broken heart. Give it time, talk to someone, choose to move on. But neuroscientists studying the brain in real time began to notice something that this division could not account for. The brain did not seem to know the difference. When they scanned people experiencing social exclusion, being rejected, being left out, being ignored, the regions that lit up were not only the emotional centers. They were the pain centers, the same ones, doing the same thing. The wall between physical and emotional pain, it turned out, was not a wall at all. It was the same room. In 2003, Naomi Eisenberger and her colleagues at UCLA published a study in Science that tested a simple question. Does social exclusion look like physical pain in the brain? They designed a virtual game called Cyberball. Participants lay inside an fMRI scanner and played a digital ball-tossing game with what they believed were two other players. In the first phase, the other players passed the ball to the participant normally. In the second phase, without explanation, the other players stopped passing to them. They kept tossing the ball between themselves and excluded the participant entirely. No words were exchanged. No insults, no confrontation, no relationship history. Just a digital ball not passed. And yet the brain responded as though something genuinely painful had occurred. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex, the region consistently implicated in the distress component of physical pain, showed significantly greater activation during exclusion than during inclusion. The more distressed participants reported feeling, the more activity in this region. And a second region, the right ventral prefrontal cortex, activated as a regulatory response, trying to dampen the pain signal the way it would with any other pain. The brain had not filed the exclusion under feelings. It had filed it under pain. Eisenberger's team concluded that the social attachment system in the human brain appears to have been built on top of the physical pain system, borrowing its machinery to make social disconnection feel, neurologically, like damage. Not like damage, as damage. The same organ that registers a broken bone registered being left out of a game by strangers as something that needed to be processed the same way. If social pain uses the same neural machinery as physical pain, a strange possibility follows. Could a painkiller work on both? In 2010, c. Nathan DeWall and his colleagues at the University of Kentucky, working with Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA, published a study in Psychological Science that tested exactly this. They gave participants either acetaminophen, the active ingredient in Tylenol, one of the most common painkillers in the world, or a placebo. The participants didn't know which they were taking. They took their dose daily for 3 weeks. Each evening, they completed a brief survey rating how much social pain they had experienced that day. Hurt feelings, moments of rejection, feeling excluded or disconnected. The acetaminophen group reported significantly less social pain across the 3 weeks. Not slightly less, substantially less. The placebo group's ratings stayed consistent. Then DeWall's team put participants in a brain scanner and had them play cyberball, the same exclusion paradigm Eisenberger had used. The acetaminophen group showed significantly reduced activation in the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex and the anterior insula, the same regions that signal pain distress, compared to the placebo group. The drug that dulls a headache dulled the neural signature of rejection. This was not a metaphor made literal. It was a measurement. The same brain chemistry that processes physical hurt was processing social hurt, and the same pharmacological intervention that treated one treated the other. The language you have always used without thinking. Heartache, a stab of loneliness, the bruise of a careless word, was never poetic license. It was neurologically accurate. Think about why this would be. The brain is not inefficient. It does not build redundant systems. When it uses the same hardware for two things, it is because those two things need to be treated with the same urgency. For most of human history, your ancestors did not survive alone. The group was food, protection, warmth, knowledge, and the difference between making it through winter and not. Being excluded from the group was not a social inconvenience. It was a biological emergency. As dangerous as a wound, as pressing as a predator, as immediately life-threatening as starvation. So the brain assigned social disconnection to its most persuasive system, the one that cannot be ignored, the one that bypasses reasoning and argument and perspective, the one that says, "This is not optional information, you need to act on this now." Pain is the brain's emergency broadcast. Your ancestors' brains sent that broadcast for broken bones and infections and injuries that needed immediate attention. They sent the same broadcast for isolation. Because isolation, for a social animal with no natural defenses, claws, or speed, was often equally fatal. The loneliness you have felt, the specific physical quality of it, the weight that settles in the chest, the thing that keeps you awake was never weakness. It was the oldest warning your species has, working exactly as it was designed. But there is a more precise version of this, and it is harder to sit with. In 2011, Ethan Kross and his colleagues at the University of Michigan published a study in PNAS that compared, in the same individuals, the neural response to physical pain and the neural response to romantic rejection. They recruited people who had recently experienced an unwanted breakup, someone who had been left by a partner, not someone who had done the leaving. They brought these participants into an fMRI scanner and showed them two kinds of images: a photo of a friend, paired with a memory of feeling included, and a photo of their ex-partner, paired with the instruction to think about being rejected by them. Then, in the same session, they applied a physical pain stimulus, a hot probe against the forearm. Uncomfortable but not damaging. Measurable. And they compared the brain activity during both. The secondary somatosensory cortex and the dorsal posterior insula, regions that process the sensory, physical experience of pain, not just its emotional significance, activated during both conditions. The same areas that registered the heat of the probe registered the face of the person who left. This was not the emotional pain network. These regions processed the felt quality of pain, the sensation itself, not the meaning. And they responded to a photograph. The pain you feel when someone you loved chooses to leave is not a response happening in your emotional centers. It is happening in the same neural tissue that processes the physical sensation of being burned. Heartbreak is not a metaphor. It is a sensory event. The word hurt is not a metaphor when applied to loss. It never was. The language arrived before the neuroscience because the body knew first, because every generation of humans that ever lived understood, from the inside, that being separated from the people who mattered to them felt indistinguishable from physical injury. They were right. The brain does not distinguish. It uses the same circuits, sends the same signals, registers the same category of threat. And it does this because for most of human existence, that threat was real. The ache of not belonging was a survival warning, a signal that something needed to be repaired before the cost became irreversible. You have never been dramatic about loneliness. You have been accurate. Your brain was built to treat disconnection as an emergency because, for a very long time, it was one. It still remembers.